Today I'm talking to Ella and Sienna, who have released a fantastic single called Saved. It is their second single this year. They have beautiful sibling harmonies, and some of you may recognize them from a television show that was on a little earlier in the year, which we'll talk about, where they displayed those sibling harmonies. Ella and Sienna, lovely to talk to you.
Thanks for having us on.
It's a pleasure. And I'm going to scroll down my questions. I had them in the wrong spot. Now, I actually wanted to start way back at the beginning, not that it was that long ago, but you grew up in a musical household. And I'm wondering if both of your parents played instruments or sang, or what sort of music did you grow up with?
Yeah, well, our parents weren't necessarily musical in that sense, but Dad did teach himself guitar, and since then he's taught himself a bit of drums. So that's kind of where Ella started playing guitar. Dad started teaching Ella guitar.
Oh,
So
okay.
definitely a big influence, and they just love music. Mum was very into Pink. Dad was really into grunge, so like Nirvana and Red Hot Chili Peppers and all that. So even though they weren't really musical, they still were really loved music.
Yeah, well, I guess that means you are musical, just if it's not necessarily formal training, but I think if anyone responds to music, it's just a part of their lives. And so was there music on a lot when you were children? And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, did you start singing along at a young age?
Absolutely, yeah. I think this is funny, but they used to have like an old Sing Star, and they would always tell me like when I was like 4 years old, like I would just be absolutely cranking it out, just nailing it. So, and Sienna was exactly the same. Like she was writing songs from when she was like two. Um, so yeah, it was a massive influence having that music around.
That's fantastic, writing songs from two. So Sienna, do you remember those songs, or did you just wanted to get something out and that's how it came out?
I would not call them songs, really. They were just kind of, I don't even know. They were really bad.
They were funny. They were very funny, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, we didn't actually end up getting singing lessons until start of high school for us both. So we got lessons together, and that's when we kind of, took it a bit more seriously. We still kept writing songs. We always were the kids that would just be like, "Mom, Dad, come into the lounge room. We're going to put on a performance for you." Like, yeah, from such a young age. But yeah, it's still kind of recent, that getting more professional and doing more gigs and stuff like that.
And when you were children putting on these songs together, it seems, well, from the sound of it, it was a cohesive thing from the beginning. There was no sibling rivalry or anything like that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
We did do some little dances and singing together
Yeah.
that we've got on tape. So I'd say it was pretty.
Yeah, people ask us how we get along, and we of course, like, we're siblings, we have normal sibling fights and stuff like that. But when it comes to music and performing, we just have this absolute passion for it. And like, there are creative differences, but we always just want to put on a good show and yeah, do the music justice, I guess.
So when you were littler, and you're, as in, not that you're little now, that sounded completely wrong. But when you were younger, I'll say, and your parents were listening to Pink and listening to grunge, did you like it, or were you still into the Wiggles and thinking this Nirvana stuff is no good?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. Like, we would sing along to Pink, and
Nirvana, I'd be dancing like crazy when Dad put it on when he did the vacuuming. I'd be dancing.
Always loved it.
awesome.
And I guess it's really good because it made us have this appreciation for all different types of music. Like, we love the country stuff, but we're probably even newer to the country stuff. It's only been like the last 3-4 years. But yeah, we just love all music, really.
And so for you, finding music, I guess obviously your parents have some, but it's not as straightforward as it used to be to discover music. I mean, I imagine you talk amongst your friends and you talk to each other, but are you separately going off and finding things you love and telling each other, or do you tend to discover them together?
Yeah, no, we definitely do discover some different bands and artists on our own, and then we'll tell each other, and then the other person will be like, "Oh my God, they're so good," and then we're like, "Yeah, I know."
We're both super drawn to like the songwriting
Yeah.
and the lyrics. So like, one of our all-time favorites is Taylor Swift, of course. We love a bit of Missy Higgins, Casey Chambers,
Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran, yeah. And Sienna's recently gone off into the more pop side of things, like Maisie Peters, Holly Humberstone, things like that. And she'll find a song and she'll go, "Oh, I can't believe like these lyrics is so cool." And then yeah, we'll just love it together.
I mean, I know it's you're used to having this built-in, I suppose, workshop group with each other on music and things, and it's just a lovely thing to have, I imagine. So I know not everyone has it. It seems to me like you two do really appreciate that you have each other to talk to.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so at what stage did you look at each other and think, hey, this singing thing we're doing is pretty good. Maybe we should actually do something with it?
You know, it was probably from like our first singing lesson together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We started, yeah, when we started our singing lessons, we got them together straight away. And we just started learning harmonies from the get-go. Like, we had our fingers in our ears, our opposite ends of the rooms, like, we got to do this. And once we started getting it, yeah, it was just like, this is just what we do. We just harmonize, and we don't want to do it by ourselves, I guess.
And our singing teacher first pushed us to do busking, actually.
Okay.
So that was kind of our first big step to performing, I guess. Not
Getting
really,
our confidence up,
really built our confidence. So that was a great first step.
So do you always take the same parts relative to each other, or do you swap around who sings which part of the harmony?
Yeah, we swap around all the time. We kind of know where our voices fit best, so we kind of just do it naturally. Like, one of us will be on lead, one of us will be on harmony, and then go to the chorus, and one of us will take the underneath. Like, we kind of just know.
Yeah, it comes so natural to us now that we just, yeah. And it's funny, whenever we like accidentally jump to the same part, we're like, how dare you? So, but yeah, we've had a lot of practice now. So yeah, I'd say we're pretty good at it.
And I would imagine your parents actually feel like they're pretty lucky because they get to have this music in the house, you two singing together, and it's not as if you're just rattling off out of tune. You've had lessons, you completely know what you're doing. So they've got their own little concert going on.
They're so
24/7. Yeah.
They're so supportive, but every now and then they're like, girls,
Just
you have to be quiet now. Like, because especially Sienna just sings constantly. They actually built us a music room separate from the house. We have like a little granny flat music room now.
Right.
Because mum was like, look, you got to move all your gear out somewhere else.
Well, then she'll start to miss it, I'm sure. Now, as we talked about Ellie, as you talked about Ellie, you play guitar, you learned from your dad, and Sienna, you play piano and bass, I understand. So I'm guessing that's part of the equipment that is in the music room.
Yep.
Yes, we've got many guitars, a couple of keyboards, and drum kit. It's pretty full on.
It's very full on. Sienna she's very good in the way that over the years, she's just jumped on whatever instrument we needed. So like when we play our duo gigs, it's obviously just us two. So we just had guitar. And then I was like, you know what, let's make the sound a bit more full. So Sienna learnt some bass. And then now when we play with our band, we have a drummer and a bassist and a lead guitarist. And we're like, you know what? We need a keyboard player. So Sienna's now learnt some keys, which is awesome.
And do you write songs on guitar, or now that you have the keys there, are you doing some songwriting on that?
Yeah, I used to do a little bit of songwriting on the bass when I started first learning that, but ever since the keys, I started learning them. Even before I really started learning them, I'd just like be playing random stuff. I'm like, that sounds kind of cool. It's usually keys because that's just, I can do more on it.
Yeah.
Sienna, you are the first songwriter I've interviewed who has written on the bass, actually.
Oh, really?
And as a former bass player myself, I can completely understand. Bass is terrific.
Yeah.
I actually wrote the new single on the bass.
Started with bass, yeah.
Well, I suppose it does give you that. Well, to say foundation sounds a bit lame because, of course, it's the rhythm section. So it is a foundation of the sound. But for the two of you knowing those instruments and really understanding how bands are put together, I would imagine that does help not only your songwriting, but your performance as singers, because you're having this whole understanding of how a piece of music comes together.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So when you started to perform together on like live, not just at home, did it flow naturally, or was it such a different environment to being at home that you had some kinks that you had to work out?
I think like it was just the busking for us. Like it helped us so much. We did probably like a good 6 or 8 months of busking before we did a proper gig. And it's such a safe environment because, you know, people walk past, some will listen and be super supportive, some will just go about their day. And it's almost like you're kind of just practicing and there's not too much pressure. So I think that really helped us become a lot tighter together before we did our first gig, which was actually, I think like mid 2018, when we did our first gig just here in Mount Barker. And yeah, from then we were quite confident in ourselves.
Definitely.
Ella, you saying that busking is a supportive environment, I just thought it would be terrifying. I would find it terrifying. But I guess it helped you had each other, but still it is, I don't think it's a small thing to get up in front of complete strangers who are walking past and may pay no attention and put on your best show, but you obviously committed to it.
Yeah, definitely. Like the first time we were about to go out, we were both sitting in the car like, oh,
I don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But once you've done it a couple of times, like I feel like busking is still easier than, you know, some of the shows you do where it's like a listening room and everyone's just sitting there watching. So, you know, yeah, it's pros and cons to both, but it was very helpful for us.
And I think you saying that it's like a live rehearsal in front of people is a great way to look at it. If you just treat it as, well, we're not going to be too upset if we make mistakes, you know, we just rehearsing.
Yeah.
People walking by. And so this commitment to your music, busking, obviously is why you at a certain point were ready to go to the Junior Academy of Country Music, because you don't just do that on a whim. But how did you come to know about it, for one thing, and then make the decision to go?
I'd say the Academy was actually like our first kind of step into the country music scene. So we went in a competition for the ECCA, for the Brisbane Royal Show in 2019, and we were selected as finalists. So they were like, you got to fly up to Brisbane, you got to come and perform again and see, you know, try and compete for the top spot. So we flew up to Brisbane and we ended up winning, which was a massive shock for us, to be honest. That was our first country performance. Like we knew 2 country songs and we played them both. And we ended up winning, and we won a scholarship to the Academy. That was how we kind of first knew about it. And unfortunately they were like, look, it's only one scholarship and there's 2 of you, so what's going to happen? So next thing we did was went to the Borough Country Music Festival in South Australia, and Sienna won another one. So we were very, very lucky, and we're very grateful, because it was just such a good experience when we were able to get there.
So did you go into that other country music festival hoping to win? Like that was the aim in entering?
Oh,
Definitely.
Love the strategy behind it. So when you were at the Junior Academy, it's partly what's so unusual about it is that it's professional development as musicians, but for people in their teens. And I think there's the occasional 12-year-old who goes as well.
Yeah.
And even though you were quite professional by then, because you'd been doing a lot of performance and learning instruments and singing together, did you get there and think, oh, this is a whole different ballgame to what we thought it might be?
Yeah, it was crazy. Just the amount of talent in those young people was quite insane, and getting mentored by industry professionals was really amazing.
It was great to be like in a spot where you're just surrounded by your peers that you know music and love music and can just do it, and like songwriting with them. It's just, there's no other feeling. Like it's so good. And performing as well, really cool.
So did you come out of that with some songs written that you've since either recorded or thinking of recording?
Yeah, sure did. We got to do some like co-writing stuff over Zoom and with some of the like directors at the Academy. Mm-hmm. And definitely got some good songs, and not only that, but some really good perspectives on writing and feedback, which was really helpful.
And have you stayed in touch with your classmates?
Yeah, we still have our chat, and obviously it's tricky because we're all in like different states, but when it comes to Tamworth, the Tamworth Festival, we're all meeting up again. So
did you go in April to meet up with people?
We were going to go when it was in January, but since it was postponed, we weren't able to get over there because like work and stuff, but we're definitely coming on next January. So we can't wait.
Well, and I do find that people who go to the Junior and Senior Academy for that matter tend to keep those relationships with each other, which then sort of flows on to as you get older and you're releasing your music, and then you all end up on shows together, and it's fantastic. Yeah. Now, as I mentioned at the top, some people will know you from a TV show, and that TV show is The Voice, and you are on Rita Ora's team. I'm going to start with a question as someone who watches the show that I've always wondered about. How terrifying are the blind auditions?
So terrifying.
Because people ask us like, how are you feeling? And this is kind of weird, but the only way I can describe it is like, you know, when you're on a roller coaster, like a giant, and it's just going up and up and up, and you know it's about to drop. Like you're just sitting there like, oh no. That was the feeling walking out onto the stage. Like so nervous. I couldn't have done it without Sienna. She probably couldn't have done it without me.
No.
Like it was a lot better having that comfort of
Definitely.
someone with you on the stage. But I think once we got into the song, we just kind of forgot about everything else and we were just in the moment, which was really good.
Definitely.
And Sienna, did you at a certain point look at Ella and think, why have we decided to do this? This is so scary.
That was me.
Yeah.
Sienna had the idea.
Yeah,
Oh.
so I was kind of like, oh, maybe this wasn't the best idea. But no, when I walked out on that stage, it was quite surreal because you see the chairs and you're like, oh my God, are there actually people in there? Like it was kind of insane. But then we started the song and we just got into it. And I forgot that there were even chairs there. And then someone turned around and I was like, oh my God, that's what's meant to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely having Ella there, it took us out of our heads, I guess.
Yeah, it was good. It was more comfortable. Yeah.
And I always think the chair turn must be a disconcerting moment because you're performing and then suddenly this thing happens to change the environment and it would be hard to actually contain the excitement, I imagine.
You know
That's
what was the craziest is the audience, because obviously they had a live audience when we auditioned, was so loud, like so supportive. But as soon as like when we started singing, we each had like a line and it like went crazy. And like you heard the audience before you saw that the chair turned, because obviously they could see the other side when they were like pressing the button. And we just didn't even know what was happening. Like, I feel like I completely zoned out for the whole performance. But yeah, you hear this crazy like screaming and it's like, oh, that's a good thing. Yeah.
And I know from talking to someone who was on a different show a while ago that it's often a really arduous experience because it can be a long day. Like you can be waiting around, and then to maintain that energy you need to get out on stage. I mean, I suppose it's you're used to it to an extent because you are performers, but it seems to be it's almost like a war of attrition that the producers have with you to get you to wear you down before you even get on stage.
Yeah, it's a big process. They have an awesome backstage team. We didn't really have any expectations going into it because we know like it's a TV show. Some people go and they've like, you know, never performed before. So we kind of went into it not expecting much, but the whole backstage crew, and we had a great like season of artists as well. Everyone was so supportive and encouraging. But yeah, I guess we found the industry is very much, one of our friends put it really well, it's just hurry up and wait.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, you go through all of this stuff and then you wait. And you just wait for your turn. We were lucky with our blind because we were quite early in the day. So we didn't have too much time for the nerves to kind of, you know, get the better of us. But it was interesting. It was an interesting experience.
And when you perform normally, do you feel nervous or good nerves, I suppose, as opposed to slightly sick nerves?
I wouldn't say we get that nervous, more excited, I guess.
Yeah, you get the little performance adrenaline, which helps you do well. So that's kind of it, I reckon.
And did you have that even when you first performed, or was it something that maybe after that first performance together you thought, oh yeah, we like this?
I'd say we had that from the first performance, definitely. Just the rush of performing, we've always loved it, and it's just a really big part of what we do.
Yeah. So speaking of performances, you are in South Australia, and from the look of your upcoming shows, you have no trouble finding gigs. Are you finding that the live music scene is quite healthy there?
It's getting better for sure. It's still, I think, a little tricky to get people out to shows because obviously, you know, with COVID still around, things can be cancelled so last minute. But we did our single launch last Friday. Not the Friday just gone, but the one before. And we actually had a good crowd of like 50 or so people come out, which was really cool. So yeah, for anyone, you know, that's going to listen to this, just support live music because it's so important.
Yeah.
It is. And if people didn't have it, they would miss it. That's what I'm fond of saying. It's like, you know, the artists need the signal from people that they want to be seen. So, and I always think, you know, if you buy a ticket and you can't go, well, think of it as a donation. To the artist. Now, speaking of that single, it is called Saved. And what's it about?
Yeah, this one for us, I started writing this one, and it was kind of just about women empowerment and kind of flipping the classic tale of a princess being saved by a prince. And for us as young women in the music industry, just kind of standing up and having our voices heard, you know?
Yeah, it's quite funny, like, because Sienna had the first idea, I was like, this is so us. Like, it's so, it to be inspired to find our path, but also to be very stubborn with, I don't need to be saved, don't try to help me. We're going to do this on our own. So yeah.
And when you write songs, well, actually, I'll go before that. When you have ideas for songs, do you tend to think, okay, I need to stop and do this now? Or do you collect your ideas and then see which ones sort of linger to make a good song?
I think it's quite an immediate thing. If you get an idea, you're kind of inspired, and then it just kind of comes out in one take, usually, if you've got that
if it's
vivid
solid
idea. Yeah.
I find with my writing especially, if I have an idea, like my best songs have been written in like 10-15 minutes, because once you have that idea, you just need to, even if you think, oh, that's not a very good lyric, you just write everything down, and then you come back to it and revise it later and kind of fix it up. And that's when we get we work together usually once the first person has kind of got all their ideas down, because sometimes it's hard to follow the same train of thought, I guess. So once we feel like we've got a solid enough idea, then we work together and we go, okay, well, we like this. And so, yeah, it's really helpful having someone to collaborate with.
And do you go off to the music room to write when you have the ideas? Yeah.
Definitely.
Because you do it, because I guess at that point you need an instrument to sort out what's going on.
You know what is funny though? Sienna has, obviously, I feel like the early hours of the morning can sometimes be the most creative times. So sometimes we like wake up in the middle of the night and we're like, oh my gosh, we have this lyric. And Sienna just has in her room so many tissue boxes covered in scribbled lyrics, and she just has for years, and we're like, it's so funny, and in the car as well,
because I can't find a notebook quick enough, and I'm like, I've just got an idea and I'm so tired.
Well, so obviously you're collecting those tissue boxes, but at a certain point you may just need to take photos of them.
Yeah.
And I've heard people before say they wake up in the middle of the night and have ideas in their head, and I always think that's amazing, because I don't think I'd remember anything if I dreamt it and woke up.
Yeah, well, that's why you've got to write it down straight away, because if you're like, okay, I'll just remember it, when you get to the morning, it's not there.
Don't remember it.
I know the creative process is always full of mysteries. Now, this single was produced with Matt Fell, who is now in Tasmania, used to be in Sydney, and so I believe you travelled to Tasmania to record it. Is that right?
Yeah,
we did. It was really cool because we'd never been to Tasmania before, and we recorded our first single, Next to Mine, with Matt as well. That was in Sydney, and we were kind of it was a bit of a test. It was like, are we going to like the style? How? Because we hadn't really worked with a producer before, so it was, how is this going to happen? And we absolutely fell in love with Matt's style and how he brought the song to life. And immediately after that, we booked our trip to Tasmania, a couple months later. And it was awesome because his studio is out in the middle of nowhere. Right. So we spent a whole week. There was like no service or anything. And it was so beautiful, like the mountains in the background and everything. And it was a very creative space where we could just get all of our songs out. It was great.
I know you two are used to collaborating with each other, but given your tight relationship, I imagine there could have been a moment where another collaborator, a producer, there may have been no room for that person. Did you ever consider producing yourselves, like learning the skills to do that, or you always had a producer in mind?
We haven't really thought about producing our own stuff. We do kind of make our own demos, but they're not really great.
Yeah, I do. I study music at uni at the Elder Conservatorium in Adelaide. And a lot of my courses are like music tech and sound engineering. And I find that is my worst area. So, I'm not too confident working a sound desk or anything like that. So I think we were definitely going to go with a producer, because it's good to get that outside perspective as well, I guess.
I feel like we have like a vivid idea of what we want it to sound like, but we don't really know how quite to get there. And with Matt, he knew exactly what to put in there, and he just brought it to life and what we were thinking of it and like more. So it was just incredible to get to work with him.
So you had these 2 songs out this year, and there was a single from The Voice as well. I'm wondering if you're working on some new songs that you're planning to take to Matt, or you're going to have a little break.
Yeah, well, we've been writing a whole heap of more songs, and we're going to be releasing some original music later in this year. So you got to keep an eye out for that.
Sure.
Fantastic. And hopefully some shows interstate as well, so the rest of us can see you. Yes. So people can keep an eye on your website, no doubt, and your social media. And in the meantime, for anyone who loves harmonies and beautiful sibling harmonies like yours, you have 2 great songs out, Next to Mine and Saved. And Ella and Sienna, it was wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you
so much for having us.
See you.